Welcome to the CG Spectrum podcast, where we dive into the world of digital art, animation, and visual effects with inspiring career-focused stories and insights from industry experts and emerging talent, all doing cutting-edge work in film and games. I'm your host today, Nicklas Byriel. I'm department head of 3D visualization here at CG Spectrum, and today we have a very special episode for you. Joining us is the incredible talented Gizem. Gizem is a 3D visualization artist who studied at CG Spectrum and actually switched over from VFX to 3D Viz. So we're going to talk about what that decision was like for her and how ultimately she landed on 3D Viz, exploring some of the challenges she faces and how she's grown as an artist. And we have some fantastic news to share. We talked about her upcoming job interview in this episode, and I'm very happy to announce to you that shortly after we recorded this interview, Gizem was hired as a 3D artist at Rendart in Berlin. We're thrilled for her and can't wait to hear more about her new role and this exciting new chapter of her career. If you like what you're hearing, please follow, like, and subscribe to the podcast and share it with your friends. And now, without further ado, let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to the CG Spectrum podcast. My name is Nicklas Byriel, and I am the department head for the 3D visualization department. With me today, I have Gizem, one of our students.
Hi.
First of all, let us know about, how did you get into CG Spectrum to begin with?
Okay. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me today and giving me the opportunity to share my journey with people. A short introduction. I'm Gizem. I'm a Berlin-based 3D artist. I recently transitioned from VFX to architecture visualization. And if I know that it's not a big or radical change, but I decided to focus more on architecture visualization, I guess I can say. Yeah, before starting my education at CG Spectrum, I was a self-taught 3D artist. And as a beginner, it's very easy to get lost among all the learning sources, tutorials, programs, and different directions to take, actually. So it was very time-consuming and overwhelming. I started to think, like, what should I do next? And as a former teacher, my first option was to find a guide. And I decided to find experienced people. I could ask questions directly, and also, especially as a beginner, you have tons of questions, and of course there are many answers on the internet, but they are not often specific to your situation, your skill set, your level, or your knowledge in general. So questions like, which path to take, which skills should I learn based on your interests, I can say. Interests are personal questions and not easily answered online, actually. So yeah, then I decided to get a proper education, and after some research, I found CG Spectrum's 3D modeling program to be the most suitable for me, because personally I love building stuff, and I am more interested in the creative process than the end result. So this is how I started to get my education with CG Spectrum.
And yeah, you said you started in the 3D modeling courses that CG Spectrum offers. Except, other than just wanting to build things, obviously, what was the main reason for going into something like modeling? What kind of industry were you aiming for, or what kind of projects were you hoping to end up doing?
As I said, as a beginner, I didn't know about the industry in general and which path should I take. And at that point, actually, I decided to get a proper education. And before, I received my 3D modeling education at CG Spectrum, and I learned that it's the most suitable one for me, actually. It was very close to my interest before I started to get education. But while studying, I got an internship from at 3A game studio. It was a game or outsourcing studio, basically, and I decided that its game sector wasn't that the best option for me actually. And then following my internship, I began my first freelance job at visual effects studio in Berlin here, and have continued working on various freelance projects after that.
So you initially went into, well, first in the gaming industry through did you say an internship? And then later on figuring out that, okay, the gaming industry wasn't something for you probably, and then moving on to freelance work within the VFX industry. What are the challenges you feel on getting into industries like the VFX industry?
Actually, because it's an entertainment industry, it's not the very welcoming industry, or how can I say, it's not the most profitable industry, especially in the last days, as you know. And I after 3 years in visual effects industry and exhausted by trying to hunt freelancer jobs.
Okay, so that kind of leads us into, well, now dealing a little bit with the VFX industries and some of the challenges that it has in itself. People, maybe finding jobs, different studios wanting you to already have experience prior to hiring you, which can sometimes be a challenge, obviously, if you can't find junior positions necessarily. And that now with some of the challenges as well with, studios might not be hiring people, or they might even straight up be firing some of their employees, unfortunately, especially in the gaming industry. We see that right now. So that kind of leads us on to how we met each other, because that was through CG Spectrum, right?
Yes, it was through CG Spectrum. And after 3 years in the visual effects industry, and exhausted by trying to hunt a freelancer job and get contact with the studios that hasn't got any job posting and not getting any positive answer, of course. I don't even mention finding a full-time jobs, because it's near to impossible to find a secure position as a 3D generalist or as a modeler on visual effects industry. And I thought, okay, I need to do something because it can't continue like that, because I was a bit tired mentally and also financially, of course. And while I was thinking what should I do with my career, I applied for a 3D modeling technical assistant position at CG Spectrum. And basically, it's an opportunity that CG Spectrum gives to their students and their graduates, and its aim is to have students to get a real work experience and also pay a monthly salary, actually. So there are technical assistants on each department, such as for 3D modeling, digital painting, real-time 3D, and game design, etc. And for 6 months, they change every 6 months. They have students to answer their questions, running sessions and sharing knowledge. Also, answer students' questions, tips and tricks about the field that they are qualified, and they're also creating challenges that keep students motivated, and also maybe push their productivity, I can say. And luckily, I was selected for the role, and my priorities have been to improve my skills daily, even if I don't have a job, and stay updated with the innovations in the industry and work on personal projects. And this position really helped me. At that time, I was working on a personal project. I called it Sunflower Field, and when I feel that I'm near to the end point, but I knew that there are lots of, or not lots of, but maybe a little to change. I shared it with our 3D modeling community on Slack. We have a community, CG Spectrum's community on Slack, and it's an open platform for every department, but even you are a modeling student, you can still have access to game design or digital painting or any other department's chat room, basically. You can ask questions there. Also, you can join sessions and share your work. So mentors and other students give feedback and share their opinions with you. I did the same and shared my work and reference pictures and said that I was trying to create a photorealistic render. And at that time, our students manager Nikita reached me and sent me a message and told me that because I'm looking for a photorealistic result, it would be better for me to send it to my work to Nicklas, our visualization head, and you, of course. And I sent my work to Nicklas, and this is how we met actually. And then in a very short time, he sent me a very detailed feedback, and there were lots of details that I didn't even realize, and that I didn't even realize that it have a big impact on the end result actually. Until that day, I didn't know much about the visualization, and it is the skill actually that I need to learn to achieve that realistic look in my works as I wish. So I was very fortunate to have a direct contact with Nicklas at that time, because he was a very good guide for me. And after that, this led me to get my second education in architecture visualization at CG Spectrum.
I think I remember I sent you like 6, 7, 8 bullet
Yes,
points of stuff that you could do as improvements or something that you could at least think about in terms of your project. Not necessarily always stuff that is meant to improve it, but a different point of view.
exactly.
And I think that's the beauty of the CG Spectrum community and the open community as well, is that it's free for anyone to join in for whoever posts about anything. In your case, it was about your work and you were showcasing some of it. So it's really valuable to getting a point of view from someone from maybe concept art who sees color or composition way different than someone from modeling or architectural visualization or animation or whatever, because people have their different points of view all the time,
Exactly.
which I think is like one of the more valuable things in our in the open communities at on Slack for CT Spectrum. And yeah, then you switched over to ArcViz,
Mhm.
which, you know, like always, very happy to have you on board and to help you out and see what you can get out of it, because we do feel like that some of the, you mentioned this yourself, but some of those, you know, the VFX industries and gaming industry as well actually has some challenges in terms of finding full-time employments, where
Exactly.
a lot of it might be project based, for, you know, a certain period of time, where you can be hired for maybe 3 months, 6 months, or whatever long it is, but it's not as secure as just a full-on employment,
Mhm.
which is probably way more common in the visualization industry.
Exactly.
So that can give you a little bit more security in terms of the future and job security in general, but obviously at the cost of it not being entertainment as the main focus.
Mhm.
Now it's usually more marketing or yeah, I would say marketing is probably the most common usage of visualization in general.
Mhm.
So switching from something like VFX and even the gaming industry in your case, you'd have to think about, you know, why ArcViz, because a lot of people might look at ArcViz as a fairly dull subject in comparison to VFX, where you can maybe make explosions and stuff like that for movies or whatever it might be, where buildings might all of a sudden sound a little bit boring to some
Mhm.
people, which, I can completely understand that, because it's, people grow up looking at movies. They don't necessarily grow up looking at architecture.
Yeah.
Um, some do, obviously, but I mean, it just makes sense. So why Aquis all of a sudden?
I agree with you about problems on visual effects industry and to not finding a job, secure job in general, and also strikes, as you know, and layoffs are quite frustrating. And I can say that witnessing these events also encouraged me to explore different paths. And now I have already say that I have in contact with a few firms in architecture visualization, and I feel like I can say that I feel hopeful after a long time. And yeah, it was one of I guess I can say it was a good decision that I decided to shift my focus to architectural visualization, because my personal interest in architecture was a significant factor in this decision. First of all, as I already said, I love building stuff since my childhood, and Sims was always my favorite game, and I was the one who spent hours and hours on the construction mode by building and decorating the house, and in no way actually start playing the game. So yeah, it was same in my career also. Um, I enjoyed working on environment projects, and I have already responsible for building stuff in the architectural visualization. I wasn't personally not very interested in these explosions, and as I have already said that again, I I love being on the process, and I like to work on the process, and I like the process in general than the end result. So I enjoyed working on environmental projects, particularly modeling and texturing building interiors and exteriors, and I thought, why wouldn't I do that, and why not specialize in this area? Um, so yeah, this was how I switched to architecture visualization.
I guess that makes sense, right? Because VFX in a lot of cases is all about, in a lot, not in all cases, but in a lot of cases, it's about realism. And well, visualization usually is mostly realism as well. So a lot of the same subjects go, and skill sets that you need for one or the other go pretty much hand in hand. So how do you feel like that adapting over to ArcViz in general has been for you, from going from something like VFX, for example, and now adapting over? Because I mean, I know as a fact that we use different programs usually than you would traditionally in VFX.
It wasn't a very big and radical change for me. The transition to architecture visualization was relatively smooth for me because I specialize in modeling, and for modeling I was using Maya in general, and now I switched to 3ds Max because first of all it's very similar to Maya, and it has specific tools. I feel like it's specifically geared towards ArcViz, and it can handle large scenes, huge FBX files and DWG files much faster and smoother compared to the programs, softwares like Blender. And also it is still, and I believe will remain for a long time, the industry standard. And also you can create and render an entire scene within a single software, and it is, I think it's amazing.
Yeah, we do see obviously more and more people now utilizing programs like Blender is a great example, because Blender is is new in comparison to especially a program like 3ds Max, which is, I think, actually one of the oldest by now in the industry. But it's, you can obviously feel in 3ds Max as well, and I think a lot of new people coming into the industry, they can kind of tell that 3ds Max seems kind of old school and maybe a little bit outdated in quite a few ways, in comparison to a program like Blender, which has a lot of new tools and new um, maybe ways to solve different issues that are quite interesting.
Mhm.
But that does, we shouldn't obviously rule out something like Blender for ArcViz just because 3ds Max is the most used program right now. That doesn't mean that Blender can't be in the future, or at the very least, it's a great additional tool in your toolbox of skill sets, basically,
Right.
to have acquired that you can add into your workflow if needed, so you can always, solve some of the issues in Blender and then jump over to 3ds Max or completely in Blender. I
Yeah.
do know of a few companies by now
Mhm.
who have switched completely over to Blender.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to them recently, but I actually do think it would be interesting to try and talk to them now on how that switch have been for them,
Yeah.
and if they're feeling any, like, dependent on what types of projects they do, if they're seeing any issues in terms of file handling, especially because that's usually one of the benefits, as you said as well, with 3ds Max.
Mhm. I'm also
So yeah,
curious about that.
so thank you so much, Gizem, for joining me here on the podcast for CG Spectrum. And it was really nice hearing about your journey going from first the gaming industry into VFX industry and now into ArcViz, and now actually applying actively to jobs within the visualization industry in itself. Looking very much forward to following up with you, hopefully in a few weeks, maybe, that we can make an additional video or something of you talking about your new exciting job in the VFX, in the ArcViz industry. That could be awesome. Thank you so much for joining, and I'll see you later.
Thank you so much.